Arc 6, The Corridor of Memories. Chapter 57, Let's disregard it for now. Betty was dragged into this against her will, in fact. But since it was Subaru's request, it had to be properly answered to, I suppose. Master Sama is an invulnerable man, after all. I wasn't worried or anything. In fact, I was suspecting the possibility of little girl number 2 going off and exploding the moment she stood behind Master Sama. Meili, Upon looking at those faces slowly climbing up the spiral staircase, Meili had her white cheeks go red and tried moving her lips as she stood at a loss for words. Viewing the changes occurring in Meili from the side, Subaru then raised his hand and said hey to the shadows on the staircase. Subaru, thank you for being on the rear guard. I'm relieved that falling down could be avoided somehow. No matter what Subaru may say, there's no saying she would have been forgiven if you really came down falling, in fact. That is why this is a matter of being lucky, I suppose. Snorting her nose, climbing up the staircase holding the hem of her dress was Beatrice. Behind her was also Shala's figure, with her hand behind her head, laboriously returning to the 4th layer after having been far down below on the spiral staircase. Meili, WWA. Ooni-san? Those two, what is the meaning of this? Upon seeing Beatrice and Shala's figures, Meili looked back at Subaru in astonishment. Subaru crossed his arms upon the bewilderment of the young girl, who had been unaware of this. Subaru, well, I don't really know how to word it, but the plan just now was a lot like walking on a tightrope. I don't like to think this way, but the pattern of me being pushed by you and just dying had also been quite possible, you know. It turned out all nicely cause I happened to have stylishly caught your arms beforehand. Meili, but Ooni-san was also keeping a watch over us, no. Subaru, well I also know about Emilia-chan being powerful despite her mad cute looks, so it was for just in case of an emergency. Though it'd be no joke if Emilia-chan also jumped down with me in an effort to save me. The truth was, at the very end of where they had been in the past, Subaru had fallen alongside Emilia. He had embraced her, but had been unable to save her. This had been etched into his heart profoundly. If the same happened again, then Subaru shall surely push Emilia to someplace safe, is what he would like to say, but it could not be helped that his body wouldn't be able to process any more data when already at its limits. Subaru, why, I simply played this card just to make sure that emergency doesn't happen. I judged it'd be alright if 2 people, Beatrice and Shala, were watching from below. He had witnessed that Beatrice was a skilled magician with his own eyes, and when it came to Shala, the specifics remained unknown, but there was no need to confirm that she possessed strength unfitting of her appearance. No doubt with regards to that, since Subaru had her lift him up just in case when he was requesting them and discussing this plan. Meili, why go so far? There must have been much simpler and wiser ways, and yet. Upon hearing Subaru's explanation, so whispered Meili with a downcast gaze. Her embarrassment for having been seen at a disgraceful spot was fading away, what she felt instead was perhaps the negativity of punishment. Upon her words, Subaru said yeah as he touched his cheek with a finger. Subaru, just as you said, I think there had been easier and wiser ways. I think so, but. Meili, think so but. Subaru, at the level my mind operates on, easiness and compromise are 2 sides of the same coin, and wiseness is partnered with unfairness. I did not want to resort to compromise and unfairness. Upon hearing those words, Meili's eyes somewhat straightened, as she softly bit her lips. Looking at her with a wry, strained smile, Subaru clenched his fists. He thought of somehow fixing everything. He wished to somehow fix everything. Henceforth, in order to somehow fix everything, he wanted to do everything he was capable of. Subaru, that's why, I didn't hesitate in asking Emilia and the rest for help. Emilia, that's right. I was also very surprised when Subaru first told me about this. So pronounced Emilia, still hugging Meili from behind. She had her chin rest on Meili's petite shoulder, and glanced up towards Subaru. Emilia, but I knew Subaru was really serious at a single glance. Besides. Subaru, besides? Emilia, I was happy that Subaru was willing to discuss. Because Subaru always makes preparations to put an end to everything by the time I even take notice. Smiling with her eyes upturned, Subaru halted his breath before the young girl with amethyst eyes. As Subaru stiffened his cheeks, Emilia instead loosened her cheeks and lips, following with a nodded. Emilia, that's why, I was happy that you came asking what to do, and allowed us to think alongside this time. It's a bit strange, isn't it? Subaru, no point in saying it, but the me who was there until yesterday really pisses me off. No, but since getting to look at this face and hearing this voice is my special privilege, did something rather deserved happen to me until yesterday? What do you say, Emilia-chan? Emilia, sorry. I don't get what you're saying. Subaru, continuing to smile, blathered and loosened his shoulders. And the two who were climbing the staircase below these three finally joined them. Beatrice, once again, it is relieving to know that nothing happened in fact. Subaru, nothing happened would be a bit of a faulty expression, considering tons of reformations occurred within Meilei's consciousness. So something did happen. Shala, oh, as expected of Master Sama. Absolutely no idea what you're on about, but when it comes to your cool aura then there's nothing that can surpass it. Subaru, do you actually even hold any respect for me? Shala seemed to be regardlessly impressed by anything she was told, but when Subaru consulted regarding the principle of saving Meilei, the first one to endorse him had also been her. Naturally, it also did feel like she put no deep thought to it and simply wanted to support Subaru with what he wanted to do, but it was also certain that he had been saved by such existence of hers. Meilei, Beatrice-chan. Are you not angry with me? Beatrice, it's a matter of course that Betty is angry, I suppose. But you seem like you'd get popped to shreds by Betty, so Betty has somehow managed to shut it off in fact. There's also what happened in the sand dunes, so what happened now shall be written off, I suppose. Beatrice, however. Writing off what happened now only goes for this one incident, in fact. You still bear the sin of burning the forbidden archive in the previous mansion, I suppose. As long as that exists, Betty will probably never forgive you, in fact. Crossing her short arms, Beatrice responded to Meilei's doubt with a stern look in her eyes. Meilei halted her breath upon her words, but Emilia immediately laughed with a hee-hee. Emilia, it may be a bit difficult to grasp, but Beatrice just now said probably. She's saying she'll properly forgive Meilei if she stays a good girl. You're really so kind. Beatrice, Emilia. Don't go saying unnecessary stuff, I suppose. Meilei, I'll do whatever I can to touch your heart. Exposing the other side of the strict comments, Emilia laughed before the blushing Beatrice. Seeing them, Meilei responded with a soft voice. Witnessing the scene, Subaru nodded several times in satisfaction. Could he not say that finally, the progress before his eyes had actually happened? At the very least, her actions, having ultimately believed that Subaru must be killed, had been prevented. Though this was yet merely one of the tragedies which occur in this tower. Shala, so, is this really fine, Master Sama? Subaru, said Shala with an innocent and calm voice, standing behind Subaru, who was drowned in thoughts. Standing beside Subaru, narrowing her dark eyes, she was glaring at the spectacle where Beatrice and Meilei went back and forth with Emilia in between them. And as Sudbury furrowed his eyebrows, she resumed with the same tone. Shala, the girl who tried to kill Master Sama. Is it really okay to let her go with no reproach? Subaru, you sure ask some dangerous stuff. It's fine. Meilei's already gotten reproached. But things ended up like this because nobody actually taught her about why she was being reproached. She shall be taught about that, now onwards. Shala, Master Sama also said the same, but what if she tries to kill Master Sama again because of that? Subaru, that'd happen if I'm extraordinarily bad at teaching, but it's not like I'll be the only one at it. That was how Subaru responded to Shala's questioning. If Subaru were to aim for changing the sense of ethics of someone fostered to be an assassin from a very young age by himself, then it would be extremely difficult, and in all honesty, he did not possess the strength to shoulder this responsibility either. However, Subaru did not think of doing anything and everything by himself. He had relied on Emilia and the others for stopping Meilei's crime as well. He shall have Emilia and Beatrice go along with him ahead of this as well. Subaru, of course, I'll have you helping as well, Shala. Because it'll be a long road of her objecting individual sense of values. Shala, me too? Subaru, that's of course. You. Well, on the flip side you have teacher-like ambience, and I won't leave you out alone. Your body is overflowing with motherhood, use it nicely to break through to Meilei's obstinate heart. Before Shala, who pointed a finger at herself in sheer surprise, Subaru declared relaxedly and shrugged his shoulders. It was a mystery as to what she was so astonished by, but considering she often overreacts, Subaru did not question it much, thinking that just was a part of her. Upon Subaru's judgment, Shala sandwiched her face with her hands. Shala, me too, huh? Me too, together with Master Sama, me too. Aya. Subaru, huh? What happened, you? Shala, nothing. I've decided. Just as Master Sama ordered, I'll raise that little girl number 2 into a proper upright person. With a red face, Shala sprinted towards Emilia and the rest. And lifting up Meili's body with ease, hugged her and pushed her into her voluptuous chest. Meili, Kia. What happened, Naked One-san? You surprised me. Shala, it's okay, you can act like a spoilt child under my care as much as you'd like, little girl number 2. My chest belongs to Master Sama, but I'll share it with little girl number 2 just for now. The wealthy should give to the needy, you see. Meili, hey Oni-san. You drilled some weird stuff into Naked One-san's head once again, right? Meili, being treated by Shala as per her own pleasure, raised her voice upon judging this was Subaru's antic. Subaru, well, think of it like compensation for worrying everyone, and get treated affectionately all nicely. It's alright, from what I saw she doesn't have any ill will. Meili, geez, such hopeless people. It's fine, I'll let it pass. But what happened here is a secret to other people. Saying so, Meili puffed her cheeks as she was sandwiched by Shala's breasts. But upon Meili's comment, Subaru scratched his head and said Meili furrowed her eyebrows upon his reaction, and in Subaru's stead, Emilia responded to her. Emilia, Meili, it's really difficult to say this but… Meili, I'm getting a bad feeling about this. Whether that bad feeling of Meili's had hit the mark or not. The answer to that question could immediately be understood by her reaction to the words Emilia followed up with. Emilia, Subaru had also properly consulted Ram and the others, who are not here. Meili made an immensely wry expression. The room which was used for meals or conversations was called the common use room, but what awaited Subaru and the rest when they returned to the common use room was Ram, with her hands on her hips. Ram, is that so? Seems you cleaned it all up. Not bad, worthy of a compliment. Receiving Subaru and the rest upon their safe return, Ram said so to the 5 with peaceful eyes. That was perhaps high praise from her, hence Subaru accepted it straightforwardly. The whole incident with Meili was something he could brag about to even her. And he was relieved that his boasting would not lead to him being in a bind. There's no requirement to say this, but she had been awaiting your return standing like this the whole time. Ram, there truly was no requirement to say that. Kindly restrain yourself, Echidna. Echidna, you've had this attitude ever since you got to know I was the one controlling this body. How likable. Saying so and making Ram stiffen the edges of her eyebrows, was Echidna, with her hips down onto the floor of the common use room. She accepted Ram's eloquence with a smile, then looked at Subaru and the rest. Meili, humph. Echidna, so, what is she so sulky about? The one Echidna pointed to was Meili, who was being carried on Shala's back. Groaning with a bitter expression, without responding to Echidna's question, Meili continued to sulk and averted her eyes away. She was being completely peevish. Echidna, so, for example, she's irritated because she got her plan for murder intercepted. If that's the case, then I am slightly uneasy about leaving her without any constraints like this. Subaru, no, that's wrong. Echidna's insecure supposition, and the way she had visibly been on guard for Subaru even in this short interval must be a display of her emotions, of wanting to protect the girl named Anastasia, the owner of her body. She could not help but form a strange misunderstanding, and Subaru firmly denied it. Subaru, she just feels awkward that she got her thoughts uncovered and everyone got to know about them. It's so childlike, it's cute. Echidna, considering what she attempted to do, it feels odd to describe it as something childlike but… I see. Even after losing memories, the true nature doesn't change so easily is what it's about. Must be surprising to you, not Suki-kun. Subaru, it's my honor if it serves to be entertaining for you, that's all. Winking towards Echidna's line of sight, he was then ridiculed by a Habai Ram. Afterwards, Subaru turned around in a circle and surveyed the room from the inside. Subaru, Julius isn't here. Where is he? Toilet or something. At the time of utmost serious affairs, you engage in trifling matters, the thought of that is truly vexing. Subaru, it's not like it's decided that it's a trifling matter. He may be doing a rather important task, you know. Hearing a voice from behind, Subaru curved his cheeks and turned back towards the echoed voice. Receiving his smile, which had a negative connotation to it, was Julius as he touched his own bangs. As he returned from the outside of the common use room, Emilia tilted her head. Emilia, Julius, were you having a stomachache? Julius, Emilia-sama, do not take his words and deeds at face value. Certainly, he is your one and only knight, a position where you should trust him more than anyone, unquestionably so, but sometimes, even his prominent words and deeds are. Subaru, hey, don't stuff such unnecessary stuff into Emilia-chan's mind. First of all, it was you who wasn't even in here. I'll excuse you if you say you were out in the toilet for a bit. Julius. Heh. Glared by Subaru's black eyes, Julius loosened his lips. A way of laughter seemingly losing breath, truly irksome and befitting of his appearance, but Subaru felt that there just was something wrong with that laughter. Echidna, Emilia, and Natsuki-kun, no need to worry. Following the earlier conversation, Julius went to be on the lookout for the outside. As Meili wields the power to control witch beasts, and in case she truly intended to achieve her goal, what should be seen as the greatest threat would be the existence of the witch beasts outside the tower, you see. Julius, so I was on the watch for the outside of the tower from the balcony I found last night. Fortunately, there appeared to be no oddities outside of the tower, and it seemed everything was alright inside as well. Whilst saying so, Julius turned his gaze towards Meili. Atop Shala's back, upon noticing Julius' gaze, she made a sour look with her lips. However, seeing Meili's conduct, Julius abruptly relaxed his cheeks. Julius, I am glad, it seems everything was resolved safely. Though when you spoke about having lost memories and then about this, it felt as if heaven and earth had partly been overturned. Subaru, that's way too huge an exaggeration. Well, that's not something I, who lost memories, can say. Julius, I suppose so. Saying heaven and earth got overturned would be going too far. Just slightly though. Anyway, I am glad everyone's safe. After having sought even Emilia-sama's help, if it still ended up as a failure ultimately, then there wouldn't even be any room for recovery. Subaru, yeah, I'm also relieved. You and I are close enough to be quarreling like this, right? Julius, heh. Julius laughed in a stuck-up manner at what Subaru said with a finger raised. Thinking that this smile did not have that earlier faint vacillation, Subaru also felt satisfied. This made the 5th time of them meeting by chance ever since he had lost his memories. All this time, he did not get much time that was spent peacefully, and the reality was that he must have spent much more of his time with Emilia and the others. And surely, Natsuki Subaru had his own way of connecting to them. Henceforth, Subaru wanted to carefully follow Natsuki Subaru's footsteps to make sure there isn't too huge a difference, to make sure Emilia and the others do not get saddened. He did not want to directly lay his eyes upon the reality that Emilia and the others had lost Natsuki Subaru. Besides, it would surely be better to not face a reality of such sort. If Natsuki Subaru disappears, and Natsuki Subaru returns, then surely. Subaru, alright then, let's head for capturing the tower with this newly reborn all-friendly team of ours. Any objections? Emilia, MHM, none. Let's give it our all. Beatrice, that name, friendly team has a bit of a sense of apathy to it, in fact. Regardless, Emilia and Beatrice presented two extremes of agreement to Subaru's opinion. The others did not seem to hold any objections either, which relieved him for the moment. Julius, will it be fine to accept that there'll be no problems with regards to her this way? Subaru, yeah, that'll be fine. She won't act recklessly and try to kill me behind everyone's backs. However, whether she'll be able to keep this up hereafter depends on Meili as she grows up watching our backs, so be careful to make sure she doesn't get to see our backs being uncool or dreadful. Julius, I see. So it is a matter of appearances. Then I want you to leave it to me. Turning his gaze towards Meili, Julius drew his chin in and agreed with Subaru's words. Appearances seemed somewhat of a wrong way to describe it, but to have others look at your back, in other words, becoming a role model, in that sense Julius' description was certainly befitting. The present Subaru could not say he had been with him much, but he had still witnessed that Julius possessed a strong sense of self-denial and excellency in various kinds of conducts. Those were the fruits of his own ready wit, an indication of the refinement of the environment he grew up in, and at the same time they also symbolized the hard work he had put into applying them to himself. Through evident hard work, he had applied those to himself. Them being something valuable, something priceless. Emilia, Subaru, are you okay? Do you think you'll be able to converse? Subaru, whoa. Suddenly, Emilia grasped Subaru's arm whilst he stood with halted breath, looking at him in concern. Seeing how close he was to her, Subaru regained his senses and jumped backwards, flustered. Witnessing Subaru's overreaction, Emilia spilled out a faint awe. Emilia, you know, ever since you've woken up. No, ever since you said you lost your memories, Subaru just keeps getting surprised by me, no? Is there something strange about me? Is there something on my face? Subaru, no, not at all. There's just your cute eyes and cute nose and cute lips and cute ears. Emilia, cute. Hee hee, thank you. But if that's the case, then why? Subaru, I guess it's because it feels like Emilia-chan's features aren't just the parts added up, but multiplied such that they complement each other. Also, your voice is cute. You're also cute. This won't do, what an angel. Subaru covered his face with his hands and looked at Emilia through his fingers, suggesting she was too dazzling to look at. Hearing Subaru's comments, it was Beatrice who responded suddenly. Beatrice, Huck. Try saying that in a more Subaru-like fashion, I suppose. Subaru, huh? What's wrong? Beatrice, again, say the words Emilia looks like an angel in a Subaru-like fashion in fact. Subaru, what kind of public shaming is that? I'm not doing it. It's embarrassing. Beatrice, you're also cute like an angel. Don't sulk. Beatrice, it's true that Betty is cute like an angel, but that's not what it's about, I suppose. Heartbroken, Beatrice lowered her shoulders in dejection. This made him feel guilty, as Subaru then patted her head and everyone now was in formation of a circle in the common use room. Now this made for a proper place to converse. It was regrettable that the real progress sought after had not been realized yet, but it was about time to continue the conversation rather boldly. Subaru, with all the being said, once again, Meili's a part of our team now. For having a societal inspection of Meili, having her entered genuinely now, I would like to hurry up and leave this sandy tower as well. Any objections? Ram, that manner of speaking really makes one question if you've truly lost your memories or not. But Barusa's memory loss is a rather light problem when compared to more serious ones, but it's still a problem. Emilia, that's right. It's not like they could have just suddenly disappeared out of nowhere, so we have to make sure Subaru gets his memories back. Subaru, about that, how about we disregard it for now? After raising a hand and seeking approval, Subaru interjected a pause between Ram and Emilia's comments. Everyone in the conversation, not just the two of them, responded with a ha in surprise. The only one not surprised was Shala, but she was busy tending to Meili after earnestly accepting Subaru's requests, so he left her out for the moment. Beatrice, Subaru. Please don't make Betty and the others worry too much, in fact. Your memory loss was sufficiently surprising, yet saying that it's alright to not recover them would be far too self-abandoning, I suppose. Emilia, yeah, that's right, Subaru. Are you perhaps thinking that you don't want to cause problems for us? But Subaru, you consulted us regarding Meili, didn't you? Similar to that, we will all think together with regards to Subaru's memories as well. Please, okay? Subaru, that persuasion makes my heart ache. No, but well, listen to me for a second. It's not like I'm saying this out of self-abandonment. There's a proper reason behind it. That was the excuse Subaru made against Emilia and Beatrice's concern. Following, Subaru raised a finger making sure everyone could see it and said listen. Subaru, I do think that me suddenly losing my memories in this situation is regrettable, and it really makes me happy that everyone wishes to get them back. However, is there anyone here who thinks this memory loss is unrelated to the existence of this tower? Shala, Master Sama hit his head in the toilet's urinal and lost memories before. There's no end to it. Subaru, outfielders to remain quiet for a second. What you said certainly can't be ignored, but it's fine for now. Irritated by the outfielders' disruption, Subaru brought the conversation back together by saying anyway. Subaru, what I want to say is that there's a relation between the tower and my memory loss. In other words, Echidna, in other words, upon fulfilling the conditions for capturing the tower, the cause behind Natsuki-kun's memory loss, or the key to it might naturally be obtained. Is that what you mean? Subaru, yeah, that's right. That's what I mean. Subaru nodded several times upon Echidna's words, who had read into Subaru's thoughts. Hearing Echidna's view, Julius put his hand on his chin and said I see. Julius, if the tower's mechanism has stolen Subaru's memories, we might get closer to the answer upon capturing the tower. Or instead the occasion of Subaru losing his memories might have happened because he got too close to the answer. Echidna, it seems quite possible. His insight at the time of capturing Teijida, to say it clearly, he utilized knowledge we couldn't possibly ever have. Due to the knowledge only Natsuki-kun possessed, he went far too ahead of even us and resultantly had his memories lost. Subaru, wait, that would be way too much overestimation. I'm just a shut-in, you know? My speciality is like, spreading bedsheets open cleanly and sewing, you know? Emilia, look, Subaru. The embroidery on these clothes, Subaru did it. Did you start remembering something upon looking at it? It's cute, right? It's Puck. Subaru, embroidery of a cute cat. But, I don't really have an idea. Digesting the conversation, which required a great deal of thinking ability, Subaru denied Emilia, who was caressing the picture of a cat embroidered on her clothes, downhearted. Perhaps a cat she had kept and even given a name to. It seems she did not bring it along to the tower, so he wanted to hurry up and return safely, and make her reunite with her pet. Regardless, Barusa learned something there was no need for, and as a result, lost his memories out of rashness. Certainly seems convincing. Beatrice, Ram's way of saying it is quite thorny, but Betty generally agrees as well, in fact. Besides, Subaru's thoughts of the tower's capture being prioritized. The prospect seems repulsive, but it does have a point, I suppose. Subaru, Beatrice. Beatrice's dissatisfaction was perhaps directed towards the situation of not giving topmost priority to Subaru's memories, after all. It made him happy from the bottom of his heart that she would think this way, but Subaru had his own reason for not prioritizing his memories. If they leisurely search around for his memories, or they wouldn't make it in time to prevent the tower's tragedies. What had happened? What was going to happen? Subaru and everyone else must become one and prepare for those calamities. Subaru, and so, I want to prioritize capturing the tower. I want everyone to understand for now as well. Subaru, I don't think it's fine if things remain this way either. But my problem can be dealt later. If we postpone the initial problems, we won't ever reach our goal. I want to do what we should do. So appealed Subaru to everyone, earnestly. He put in as many efforts as possible to cover the demerits of Natsuki Subaru not being here. And that he wanted everyone to lend their strengths in return. Subaru's request had everyone at a loss for words, however. Ram, truly, such a fool. Sighed Ram, turning her head and looking at everyone with her light crimson eyes. Ram, even after losing memories, your deplorable intellect won't change. In other words, even if your memories return, there's not much the present Barusa can contribute. Then, prioritizing Barusa's memories would only be wasteful. Let's capture the tower and subsequently anticipate their return. Subaru, subsequently you say, don't you have any other ways to put it? Ram, no. You lost your memories subsequent to attempting to capture the tower, isn't it? In that case, kindly find them subsequently as well. Don't cause Ram problems. He promised Ram that he will remember, he will get them back, no matter what. That is why, he couldn't possibly weigh the impact Ram's heart must have received when he said he wanted to postpone matters regarding his memories. However, precisely because of that promise, Ram had said this in the first place. She had made the promise with Subaru, despite him being a habitual breaker of promises. Echidna, progressively speaking, it's not like we have a way to recover memories. I shall also agree with Natsuki-kun and Ram say. Speaking optimistically here, but there's also the possibility that the memories come back with time. Julius, I'd say a passive agreement for me. I shall not give utmost priority to it. I shall prioritize the tower's capture. But should I find a chance to recover your memories, I shall prioritize that. Emilia-sama and Beatrice-sama mustn't be made to make such a sad expression. Subaru gave a deep nod in response to Echidna and Julius' words. He then turned his eyes towards the two of Emilia and Beatrice. Receiving Subaru's gaze, the two ultimately hesitated a bit, but... Emilia, this time, even if it's tough, I'll be patient. But... Subaru, but... Emilia, sometimes, do excuse me for worrying about Subaru the most. Subaru, I'm sorry. Noticing that it was equal to what he had said about keeping worrying about him later, Subaru turned his head down in response to Emilia's request. Seeing the two, Beatrice let out a sad sigh. Beatrice, Emilia said what Betty wanted to say, I suppose. That was supposed to be the most effective one, so do properly reflect on yourself, in fact. Subaru, yeah, I got it. Henceforth, gaining everyone's approval, Subaru once again firmed his resolve for capturing the tower. And what Subaru wanted to first propose thus forward was, Subaru, how about we all go and search if there's Reed's book in the library of Teijida? Chapter 58, that is that, this is this. Let us search and see if there's Reed's book in the library of Teijida. That was what Subaru suggested as a necessity for capturing the tower, as well as capturing their immediate problem, the second layer. While sitting in a circle, everyone made a puzzled expression upon hearing that. Emilia, his book. Are you serious? Subaru, yep. Subaru looked at Emilia as she gave her reaction. Feeling a sense of bliss due to her cuteness and lovable nature, Subaru then turned to everyone saying, listen. Subaru, searching for Reed's book, I think that is the quickest and easiest way for capturing the second layer. Don't you all think so as well? Amelia, I asked this earlier too, but why? I'm not against searching for the book. But I just don't know why we should search for Reed's book. Besides, Julius, first of all, would Reed Estria's book truly even be in that library? Hearing Subaru's suggestion, Amelia tilted her head, and Julius conveyed the latter half of her words. Subject to everyone's gaze now, Julius looked upwards with his eyes and eyelashes which had an affinity with each other, as if glancing at the second layer which was perhaps above the ceiling. Julius, though indeed hard to believe, the hero who engraved his name in history, Reed Estria, takes the name of the trial upon himself and is awaiting our challenge in the second layer. There is no reason to doubt that he is a personage who existed 400 years ago and still is that very same person. But now, there is room to question his death in my mind. Subaru, seeing how lively he is, did he really even die? I guess my supposition may have been wrong considering this point. The truth was that Subaru merely recognized the fact that he is a dead person from several hundreds of years ago after hearing about it from Amelia from the rest. Should he have been met unknowing of his respective circumstances, it would be truly hard to believe that Reed was a dead person. First of all, he had too much life in him. He's a far too energetic dead person. Subaru, regardless, I think things are at a level that we need not ponder over this point much. It's inconceivable that he'd lived for several hundreds of years, and he should be dead. Am I right, Beatrice? Beatrice, despite everything, Betty has lived for 400 years, in fact. Amelia, around 100 years for me, I guess. Echidna, same here. I suppose if my birth would be considered, then it would make around 400 years. Though the time I was conscious for was short. Shala, me too. Me too, Master Sama. I've been waiting here in vain for 400 years. I was so lonely. I demand a hug for those 400 years. Subaru, so many characters who've lived long. Even Amelia-chan. His objective was to seek agreement, but unknowingly brought objection, whilst he had his jaw hanging. He never thought that over half of his party members would be characters who've lived for long. The party's average age jumped up so much it wasn't even a joke. Especially when it came to Beatrice to Amelia, he was unable to shut his hanging jaw. He merely thought that he had to come to terms with it. Subaru, is that so? Amelia-chan is a half-elf. I'm also convinced she's an unparalleled beauty. The rule goes that half-elves are pretty and live long, after all. Amelia, yes. Subaru, even without memories, you aren't scared of half-elves? Subaru, when you ask about being scared, then I'm scared of that cuteness. It's seriously lethal. If I look at you when I'm half asleep and have my guard down, then my eyes might go blind. To be honest, I'm having to blink frequently even now. Amelia, geez, stupid. Scolded by the slightly pouting Amelia, Subaru got lost in thoughts of this ambience, feeling nice, but braced himself up to make sure he didn't make such a foolish misunderstanding. Amelia was extremely kind. One could easily get the careless impression that she had feelings for Subaru. His beating heart swayed away. Well, it was fine if it was beating at least. Subaru, ha. At such spots, you have a sense of relief like I've returned to my parents' home, Beatrice. Beatrice, that feels somewhat unacceptable, I suppose. But well, since you're patting Betty's head, you'll be let off the hook this time, in fact. After being thrown into disarray by Amelia, his heartbeats calmed down upon caressing Beatrice. It seemed that Beatrice's mood had also been restored, so it served both ends. And, upon the derailing of the conversation, Echidna said, "Would you mind if I say something?" and raised her hand. Echidna, it's not like I don't understand Julius' worry, but I want to earnestly endorse the supposition that Reed is a dead person. Though it's simply the impression I got when I got in contact with him personally. Subaru, and the reason for that would be? Echidna, first, just as what Natsuki-kun had said, I cannot conceive that Reed Estria belongs to a species which lives for long. He is a person who goes beyond norms in multiple ways, but he is still a human. Second, his personality. Amelia, personality? Like his really energetic nature? Echidna, energetic to an extent which is rather unheard of. I cannot imagine that the possessor of such a hearty and lively personality would quietly seclude himself in the tower for 400 years. The fact that he hadn't even met her, Shala, would mean that he always remained in that one room of the second layer. It's very hard to believe. It's my arbitrary impression, but he would probably leave in 3 days. Subaru, In response to Echidna's views, Subaru responded with a voice filled with acceptance and reconciliation. Amelia and the others also thought back to Reed's bustling attitude. They all seemed to be convinced by the credibility of Echidna's views. Observing them all, Echidna turned her pale cerulean gaze towards Julius. Echidna, so, that is the impression I have, Julius, do you agree? Julius, it is impossible to not agree. Certainly, considering Reed Estria's real impression, it does not seem like he would stay at the same place for such a long time. The reason behind that is because the tower's trials and his present self have strings of conditions attached to them. Is that how we should consider it? Subaru, the tower and him, have strings of conditions attached, huh? Hearing Echidna and Julia's conversation, he recalled the denouement of the previous loop. Within the tower caught in the flames of great chaos and mayhem, Reed was walking around freely and boasted about going outside. Without any diffidence he had descended from the second layer down to the fourth layer, and even pushed the back of Subaru's head. To Subaru it did not seem like his freedom was constrained whatsoever. The truth was that had he not possessed the last bit of reluctance, he would have unmistakably left the tower full of life with his legs at the very same pace. The reason why he did not do so. Julius? What is it, do you need something from me? Subaru, no. Julius, heh. I believe I also have eyes, a nose, ears and lips on my face, but is there any strangeness in that? Subaru, unlike Amelia-chans they aren't cute at all so they've failed the screening. Regardless. The conversation had drifted far too distant from the main issue at hand. With that notion Subaru turned his gaze away from Julius. And once again returned the topic to Reed's book. Subaru, well then, now that we've all agreed that Reed's a lively dead then let's go back to what I first said. Teijida has books of the dead, am I right? Ram, that is the understanding as of now. Memories of the dead flow into the reader's head. Barusu and Julius have confirmed that much. Though unfortunately, it seems you lost memories of that as well. Subaru, I said I'm sorry, don't hold it against me. And, that is where the focus of this conversation lies. Subaru pointed his finger towards Ram. Perhaps finding the gesture unpleasant, Ram twisted his finger, making Subaru taste ache and scream "Gah." Right beside their exchange, Beatrice raised a soft voice saying Beatrice, so that is what it is, I suppose. Amelia, Beatrice, did you get what Subaru wants to say? Beatrice, yes, in fact. So that is what it is, I suppose. In other words, it means utilizing Reed's Book of the Dead as an essential point for capturing Reed, in fact. Subaru, yeah. Caressing his twisted finger, Subaru affirmed Beatrice's words with a pained expression. Hearing that explanation, Amelia rounded her amethyst eyes and whispered, is that so? Utilizing the Book of the Dead and capturing the dead himself. To summarize, not only was the Book of the Dead a record of one's lifetime, but also elaborately recorded why that person had died, a capture guidebook. And should it be put in Subaru's words, who was a veteran player having already died 4 times, the cause of death isn't something which can be evaded easily. Subaru, that's why if we read his Book of the Dead we'll get to know of the cause of his death. That would serve as a great means of capturing the books of the dead, may be, in a roundabout way, for that purpose alone, you know? Echidna, that is. Something I didn't notice. But now that you mention it, certainly. They've gone out of their way to deploy a dead person as the trial taker. It wouldn't be odd if that was the aim. Subaru, well, you don't have to accept it that readily. Subaru rounded his eyes and gave a bitter smile as response to Echidna, who commended him far greater than what he had anticipated. Regardless, the situation was such that they could either find a way to capture, or become able to define a bypass to evade it entirely. Subaru, this is something I'm saying with personal conviction. Not my present self who doesn't have memories, but myself who had memories also tried to test this way of capturing as well, I think. Beatrice, that is convincing, I suppose. There's no way Subaru wouldn't test such a byroad, in fact. Ram, that being a road toward evil, not a road toward righteousness. Certainly seems like something Barusa would do. Ram is also convinced. Amelia, MHM, yeah. Things inequitable, that's something Subaru's really good at. Subaru, who says inequitable in this day and age? Amelia, Huck. He distorted his cheeks in response to the unblurred assessment of Natsuki Subaru, and Amelia suddenly had eyes twinkling as a reaction. Subaru was surprised by her reaction, but Amelia immediately afterwards touched her cheek with her finger. Amelia, ugh, this won't do. Subaru is the one who has it rough the most, after all. I have to get myself together. Ram, Amelia-sama, your feelings are understandable, but your cheeks are flushed red. Taking Amelia's hand, Ram directed her attention towards what was happening with her. Amelia or Beatrice upon times had been giving overly sensitive reactions since a while ago, and the reason behind it was perhaps because of the vestiges of Natsuki Subaru they could feel. He truly felt guilty and apologetic. He wanted to return Natsuki Subaru to Amelia and the others as soon as possible. Regardless, in accordance with Amelia and the rest's impression as well, it was highly probable that the Subaru who was there until yesterday had arrived at a point of utilizing the Book of the Dead as a means of capturing. Hearing Subaru's thoughts, Meili then said with her hand on her mouth. Meili, this reminds me, last night I saw Oni-san in Teijida with a lot of books scattered around. I wonder if that's what it was for. Julius, last night, Subaru was in Teijida? Subaru, by the way, did you get to see what book I was reading? Meili, I don't know that much. Really sorry. Meili closed her eyes as she remained sitting on Shala's lap and getting her head caressed. Waving his hand gesturing don't worry about it, Subaru referred to my memories which were not his own, and arrived at the same conclusion. Amongst the memories of Meili he had confirmed with the Book of the Dead, despite seeing Subaru with multiple books scattered around him he had been unable to see the specifics of that point onward. That is why he had not been disappointed much by the answer to his question. However, at the point when he was in the library of Teijid it was certain that there was some sort of abnormality in Natsuki Subaru. Before he scattered the books around, or perhaps shortly after that. Julius, what are the chances of that act itself having some connection with the loss of memories? Echidna, a lot of them were scattered around, huh? Something like reading the Book of the Dead beyond the maximum possible limit filled up the entire place for storing memories and they overflowed out. That won't be possible, right? Subaru, I want to think that it shouldn't be possible, but I can't say it isn't possible. Anyhow, I have amnesia. Julius and Echidna sighed at the same time before Subaru, who had puffed up his chest and raised a single finger. They had come to a standstill when it came to discussing his memory loss, but Subaru did not doubt that the cause of his memory loss was in the book. That is why he thought of avoiding letting anyone else read Reed's Book of the Dead should they actually find it. If someone had to read it, then it must be Subaru, who already had his memories disappear once. It wouldn't be of much consequence should they disappear again. No, by now, Subaru also had too many memories he could not let disappear. The events of the previous loop, the events prior to the previous loop. Along with that, the things he had committed to his heart in these surroundings, or the promise with Ram, and what he pledged to Meili. What's this? Already hands full of stuff which mustn't be forgotten despite merely being here for a few days and repeating 4 times. This is why memories were valuable, priceless, and difficult to part ways with. They must not be forgotten. Emilia, Subaru? Subaru, I'm alright. Ahem. Upon Emilia's call, Subaru awoke from his silence and regained his composure. Then glanced at everyone's faces. Subaru, with all that being said, I propose heading to Teijida. That guy, hero of the past or the legendary so-and-so or whatever, will be handing down his achievements in his life hereafter. Instead there'll also be any failures or weaknesses he left behind, and will straightforwardly attack those points as a fame tax. Ram, you sure are confident, speaking of something you've heard someplace else. Subaru, it's cause I never thought there'd be a chance to realistically use a way for capturing this tower. If the opponent can be traced down to his roots then even the cause of his death, and what he treasures can be ascertained. This is what you truly call a modern-day knowledge cheat. Emilia and Beatrice tilted their heads hearing Subaru's words, who had his fists clenched with strength. That was mere persiflage so he did not get into its details, but it was unmistakable that Redistria, in this world, was a personage famous enough to have his name etched into history. Echidna, so in other words, that guy's cause of defeat is a fame tax. That's quite novel for a weakness, isn't it? Ram. Barusa's aim is understood. Ram is convinced as well. Though Ram certainly has some anxiety about it. Echidna, it's worth trying, huh? My oh my. Simply thinking about how difficult it will be to find a single book out of an amount of books that vast makes me feel heavy. Ignoring Subaru's frivolous comments, Ram and Echidna raised their hips. Emilia, Beatrice, Meili and Shala followed shortly afterwards. Subaru also got on his knees and stood up, and then glanced at Julius, who was lagging behind. Subaru, what happened? Are you against it? Julius, no, there's no other breakthrough solution either. Also considering that the proposal was initiated by you, I shall recognize its validity. Subaru, but there's still something on your mind? Julius. That would be a problem of my own. I want you to disregard it. Shaking his head left and right, Julius stood up at that spot. Since it was impossible to disregard it even when told to do so, Subaru only got more concerned. Subaru, I'll disregard it for now. By the way, with the exception of the Book of the Dead, just how famous is Reed? Feels like it'd be at a crazy level. Julius, seems like that was quite a strong memory. For memories that were spilled in bits and pieces, seems like some are left. Redistria is one of the 3 heroes who defeated the witch who existed in the past. Subaru, the Sage Shala, the Divine Dragon Volcanica, the Sword Saint Reed. Shala, Sage refers to Master Sama, not me. Subaru, going by your logic, I'm also several hundreds of years old? I've lived a time way too shocking between leaving the convenience store and waking up in the morning. Rather than simply taking Shala's speech with a grain of salt, Subaru ignored it after tasting the flavor of only a small percentage of what she had to say. Subaru dug deeper into the legend of Reed whereby he was spoken of as one of the 3 heroes. With respect to that topic, Emilia and the others' glances were directed towards Julius. Julius accepted their gazes, and whilst touching his bangs. Julius, certainly, there's no time to recite the legend Redistria etched into posterity in all parts of the world. Speaking of things he was famous for. The fight where he slayed 100 dragons, or his battle achievement of 6,000 undefeated victories recorded in the battle arena of the Island of Swordsmen. An existence called to be a fierce god, and the victor of drinking competitions, such varieties are also there. Subaru, all of that sounds so stupid, but after having met the real deal. Julius, it feels that they've not been exaggerated. After knowing that strength, unhesitatingly he would. No. Subaru? Julius, within what I'm aware of, all anecdotes regarding him retell his achievements and such. His personality or records of humanly failures and defeats, there are no memories of things like those. Touching his bangs, that was how Julius brought the display of information to a finish. Hearing what he said made Subaru slightly tremble, due to the fact that he had no records of defeat. It would be fine if there were no such records left, it surely cannot be that he was simply never defeated. Subaru shuddered, thinking that him being undefeated for his entire life was a relevant possibility. Subaru, oh, we're here. Whilst they were conversing, they arrived at the room which had the staircase connecting to Teijida. Further up would be the library filled with books of the dead, and the third layer Teijida shall welcome them. Subaru, Ram, would you mind guiding everyone for a bit? There's something I want to talk about with Julius. Ram, with Julius? Ram furrowed her eyebrows in response to Subaru, who had halted his feet. Julius was also surprised to hear those words, but for the moment he did not object to it. Seeing them, Ram straightened her light crimson eyes and sighed, looking back into Subaru's black eyes. A sigh which revealed grief or perhaps understanding. Ram, kindly make sure you make it quick. It'll get completely out of hand if Ram and the others also lose memories like Barusu upon reaching there. Subaru, don't say such scary stuff. Though if amnesiac Ram becomes more meek and elegant, it'll sure be a sight to see. Ram does not intend to forget anything more. Subaru, you're right. Please make sure you don't get close to any weird book if you spot one. With that exchange done, Ram was the first one to start climbing the staircase. For the moment he did not worry about misjudgments should it be left to her. Amongst all of these party members, he assessed Ram to be utmost worthy of such trust. Subaru, Meili, be ladylike. Hold hands with Amelia-chan or something at least. Meili, that is really upsetting. You don't have to treat me like a burden like this. Naked Wani-san already has grabbed my hand, even though I don't want to grab hers. Pouting, with one of her hands taken by Shala and the other by Amelia, Meili was taken to Teijida. Behind her was Beatrice, and last in line was Echidna, who looked back upon stepping onto the staircase. Echidna, Natsuki-kun. Subaru, Echidna, please do be gentle. Leaving those words behind, Echidna headed to the upper layer. Subaru scratched his head whilst viewing her back. It seemed that Echidna had probably seen through the reason why Subaru had Julius remain here. And with the departure of all the females, the only ones left standing before the staircase were the two of Subaru and Julius. Julius, so, what did you want to talk about? You've gone out of your way to keep Amelia-sama and the others at a distance, can I believe that it is something very important? Subaru, something very important. Well, I guess so. Probably. Julius, what an unclear way of speaking. Subaru, it's the kind of thing difficult to speak clearly. Subaru scratched his black hair in front of Julius, who had his back turned to the staircase. The reason why he had Julius stop here was to confirm certain things. This also included what all he had been concerned about in the earlier conversation as well. Julius, Subaru? Subaru, just wait. I'm organizing my mind right now. Subaru pondered, pulling the thread of the problem which was tangled greater than expected. He had left the search for the book onto Amelia and the others, and had told Julius to stop here. The main focus of it being, of course, Redistria. Along with that, floating in Subaru's mind was the previous loop, one of the acts of this great battle royale. Having gained freedom, Reed battles Julius one-on-one, choosing that to be the reason for his final bit of reluctance. Despite there being countless obstructions in the situation, that had been a scene truly deserving being called a one-on-one battle. However, the difference in their actual ability, perhaps including this aspect of being a psychological issue too, was absolute. On top of that, he had heard that Julius had already fought, suffered and swallowed defeat at the hands of Reed once. Adding that to the situation, Reed held some sort of attachment towards Julius. Whether that was towards the person named Julius, he couldn't help but feel that was the key to deciphering Reed. However, the problem was how to utilize it. Subaru, what do you think about Reed? Do you like him? Julius. What significance does that question hold, I wonder? Subaru, well, I just tried making the atmosphere less serious. The real one needs to be said just a bit differently. What I really mean is whether you have the intent to win against Reed. Julius, Huck. What Subaru said with one eye closed made Julius widen his yellow eyes. Witnessing vehement turmoil levitate in those eyes, Subaru took a short exhale. He felt this to be both expected and unexpected. Subaru, disregarding stuff, I'm not self-aware of myself. This is a situation where cowering away in fright is not allowed, you know. They say the habit of losing starts becoming difficult to get rid of. Julius, Subaru, you're... Subaru, wicked. The truth is that even I, after taking time and doing some stuff, do think that your daunted heart must be made to stand up again. I do think so, but we don't have such time. You get it, right? Receiving Subaru's question, Julius stiffened his cheeks and halted his breath. Subaru and Julius interpreted the implication of the words "there's no time" differently, yet he did possess identical unrest. And surely, this was something the Subaru who was there until yesterday was unable to do. Speaking the words which had to be conveyed to this wounded man who did not realize the restlessness of his own heart, and making him realize. Perhaps, Natsuki Subaru was doing what Natsuki Subaru couldn't. Believing that this would be a certain strike for breaking through the deadlock of this obstructive situation. Subaru, I'll say it clearly, Julius. If you ask why, then that's cause right now, I am invincible. Julius, invincible, huh? That is, quite a large thing to say. Subaru, I can say big stuff cause I've got no ties of obligations. I can't stand seeing you all curled up after you've looked at me in the eye, looked at Echidna in the eye, and have spoken about Reed. I've got a nature where I influence others, so I can't really say for the others, but I'll just close my eyes and say it clearly. Julius, I shall listen. Inhaling, adjusting his seated posture, Julius glared towards Subaru. Accepting that earnest gaze, Subaru resumed. Subaru, that is that, this is this. Julius, how? Julius gave a dumbfounded response to Subaru's confident declaration. With that Julius before him, Subaru opened his arms wide and... Subaru, I know it got awkward since you were looking at me. The me until yesterday probably was responsible for doing something to you. What that me who was there until yesterday did will not disappear from this world, but it has indeed disappeared from my mind. Julius, I suppose so. That is correct. However, I am... Subaru, hear it till the end. Since I'm in that state, there's a need for us to establish our relationship from scratch. At the very least, that goes for the relationship with my present self. Forget about the me who was there until yesterday for now. With the tides of conversation taking a rather violent turn, Julius yet remained unable to recover from drowning in his earlier unease. A terribly overbearing logic. He had not managed to fully convey what he wanted to whatsoever. The truth was that Subaru was borrowing the strength of Emilia, Beatrice, Julius and the rest whom had been influenced by Natsuki Subaru, those being his achievements. However, right now he shall borrow merely the positive aspects of that influence and discard the negative ones. Because, Subaru, in our party, you're the strongest. That's why, it'll be you who will be clashing with Reed. Even if we find the capture book all well and good, the fighting will still be on you. Of course, he had also considered Reed's attachment, the opponent's desire to have a one-on-one battle with Julius. However, Subaru did not intend to surrender this spot. Even if he ignored the fact that Emilia had already secured victory, Ram, Shala, Echidna, Meili, Beatrice, out of everyone Subaru knew, surely nobody would be willing to surrender before that scene. Subaru, I understand you're scared. I also understand you're perplexed. I deeply apologize on behalf of the me who was there until yesterday. Consider all of that, switch over, and fight. Julius, I have already lost to him twice. Subaru, I know. But next time, win. The number of defeats was greater by one from what he had known. However, in this circumstance, it was unrelated and of little significance. Subaru, our calculations will eventually be that you will have to win. I thought of various matchups in my mind, but before having the girls do their best, we, the men, will have to do our best, or it'll be a disgrace to knighthood. Julius, disgrace. My current self, bringing disgrace to knighthood, ha. Before Subaru, who had his fist clenched out, Julius closed his eyes and whispered with a soft tone, lowering his head. Astonished, astrayed, wounded, defeated, and now finally by means of a logic akin to violently being grabbed by the collars, Julius was trifled by Subaru's words. That was something which made him change his elegant expression into one far unlike what Subaru had expected. Julius, just as how Miss Ram had stated, I've started to doubt whether you've truly lost memories. Or perhaps instead, are you pretending to not have memories in order to stop me from abandoning the sword out of fear? Subaru, I'd go so far, even making Amelia-chan's smiling face dull? You retard, I'd never do something so roundabout. Besides, above all, even without me doing that you'd still not let go of the sword and fight for everyone, won't you? Julius, that is contradicting. You're truly trying to put strain on my frightened heart right now, huh? Subaru, no. That's wrong. What you lack isn't courage. You've got courage properly packed up in here. What you lack is the determination to win. The spirit of rivalry, competitiveness. Subaru got closer, having his clenched out fist touch Julius' chest. Receiving his words in his fist, Julius inhaled. Subaru's words possessed no lies. In the earlier loop, despite being driven into a corner against the witch beasts and reed, Julius did not let go of his sword, did not lose to despair, and conveyed the words, "I'm leaving that to you," to Subaru. And should the other side of those words be seen, they couldn't mean anything else, but "leave this to me." Under those circumstances, Julius had certainly said. To leave Redistria, up to him. And witnessing him say so had been the end. That is why. Subaru, I have not seen the settlement. Neither my memories of everything until yesterday. That is why I've not been acquainted to you, losing to Reed, even once. Julius Jaculius had not lost. This night, this man had not lost even once in front of Natsuki Subaru. That is why, no matter what anyone may say, Natsuki Subaru shall not surrender the settlement. He shall persist expecting Julius Jaculius to defeat Redistria. Subaru, I will leave Redistria, up to you. Defeat that most troublesome enemy. In exchange, I will try my hand, using my own ways, at everything else. Subaru, can't you hear me, Julius? Answer your friend's expectations. Earlier was to put the weight of expectations on him, now was to forcefully drive hope into him. Subaru's fist prodded Julius' chest once again. That single gesture, and Julius touched his chest. Continuing to have his hand touch his chest, Julius stepped back and took a deep breath. A deep breath, and... Julius, how come can you, having lost memories of everything until yesterday, are able to expect that much from me? Subaru, that's the kind of image I had. Kind of like my impression. Like your looks, the way you talk, the way you behave, what you wield, what you wear, the way you eat, the way you walk, it's the art of synthesizing from all that kind of stuff. Subaru replied without alluding to the previous loop, making him clench his chest and ache. Without even planning to, both Subaru and Julius faced each other whilst touching their chests. At the same pace, Julius corrected his posture whilst still having his hand at his chest, and slowly raised his hips. With elegant, beautiful, natural conduct, seemingly something a knight in some story would do. Julius, impression, huh? Subaru, why yeah? It's the way you appear. Your everything makes me expect this much. Julius, is that so? My appearance made you think that way, isn't it? The tone of Julius' voice changed, whilst he remained to have his head lowered. Until then, Julius' tone of voice gave the impression of being touched someplace difficult to touch, but now, though extremely slight, strength returned to it, softness lodged abode, warmth budded into it once again, that was the impression it gave. And Julius, forgotten by the world, forgotten by you, the only one who remembered me, failing to ascertain my master's existence, it became unclear where myself was. However, despite being in that state, everything I have fostered until now has not disappeared. That is what I'd like to say, at least. Subaru, not so wise or collected, but that's what the nuance is. Julius accepted Subaru's shoddy and convoluted words in a wise, polished form. Subaru had thought that he hadn't been able to convey everything he wanted to just a moment ago. However, he felt that the listener had selected something close to the everything he wanted to convey. Subaru, well, it was kind of like a conversation on notions, I guess you could call it a psychological discussion, but it felt like the psychological problem was serious, so was I correct? Julius, heh. Why would you become timid with regards to that? Weren't you supposed to be invincible, I wonder? Subaru, well, even if Mario picks up a star, if he falls into a hole he still dies, you know. Though Julius furrowed his eyebrows hearing the illogical metaphor, he did not press further. It seemed like that was something also associated to Natsuki Subaru, and that it was an understood notion to ignore his meaningless persiflage, so it felt unquestionably strange. Regardless. Subaru, have you become a bit forward-looking now? Julius, well, I wonder. Ultimately, your words were of destitute concreteness, and were more of psychological discussion, and it's not as if all of the various things which happened to me have changed dramatically. Subaru, you... Julius, but... Pausing his words there, Julius narrowed his eyes whilst looking at Subaru. And, suddenly loosening his lips. Julius, that is that, this is this. With unbefitting words, he concluded this exchange.